Hey Deckers, the much anticipated Redfall is here. Verified status on Steam Deck before its release. Does it deserve it? No, not really, but we'll get onto that in just a second because it's not as bad as a lot of people are making out. Apart from maybe some of the gameplay, because it can be a little bit dumb sometimes, but in other times it's also quite fun. Okay, so there are a few issues on this that are going to be preventing it from getting verified in our book, but it definitely is playable if you get your settings right, because it's very easy to get the settings wrong and then you get an absolute stutterfest. Even with the right settings, you do still get some hefty loading spikes, especially when there's a lot of stuff going on or when you're hitting new areas. This does seem to be a PC problem in general and doesn't seem to be much of an issue on consoles themselves. As you saw there, huge dip down into the 20s, but it's very brief and then I'm back up over to the 30s, even with lots of fire effects and smoke and other stuff going on around here. It does still mostly stay over that 30 frames per second. So what do I mean about it's easy to make this a lot worse? Well, if we actually change the Steam Deck frame rate limit in-game to 30, there is an absolute awful amount of input latency. I'm not quite sure why this is happening, but it's just not playable if you set that to 30. And if you set the frame rate limit off, even with the low settings in-game, you still get a minor amount of input latency, but you also get a lot of stutter. Now, I mean a lot of stutter. It makes it a really jarring experience. Even though the frames per second are sitting over 30 and even over 40 on a lot of occasion, it's really jerky, you get tons of stutter, and it makes you miss a lot of shots that really can make it quite frustrating. And moving around just doesn't feel very fluid at all. The general movement in Redfall is quite quick, and it is generally quite smooth, but as you can see from this section of gameplay, with that frame limit off, it's really not smooth at all. Of course, you can play this on Xbox Cloud Gaming if you have Game Pass and save yourself that £60, and to be honest, I actually recommend this. This doesn't feel like a £60 title in general. Definitely feels like a Game Pass title, great value for there, but I really am not happy about paying £60 for this. On Xbox Cloud Gaming though, with the Series X, it is capped at 30 frames per second, but you don't get those loading spikes, and it is extremely smooth to play, and it does look better than the lowest settings on Steam, and is extremely fluid moving around. You'll see as I run down this section, it's so much smoother on xCloud, even at that 30 frames per second, than it is on Steam Deck. However, if you are going to play on Steam Deck and you have swallowed that £60, then our best settings for this are to stick it on the overall quality of low, turn the AMD Fidelity FX Super Resolution 2.1 upscaling to quality, and set the quality sharpening to 0.2 and turn motion blur off. Then on the Steam Deck settings, set the frame rate limit to 60 and tick the allow tearing box. No VSync on in-game either, and now apart from those loading spikes, you will get a pretty good experience between 30 and 40 frames per second, which will keep you entertained for as long as this game will let you. In the early stages, the combat is pretty boring until you start getting multiple enemies. It is really easy to just mow them all down as well. A little bit later, this does start to become horde-like, and you do need to start actually trying a little bit harder to take down these enemies, but overall it does not feel like a £60 AAA game. I'll leave you a little bit more of the gameplay here with the right settings without me talking, so you can get a better feel for the gameplay and performance. Let us know in the comments below if you're going to be diving into this one and whereabouts. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.
Make yourself useful.